Hey guys, my name is Rai. Today I wanted to walk through how I did my plus 19 workshop on my Preservation Evoker. This is the first video I've released since showcasing the new buffs, and I wanted to walk through every decision I made, kind of my thoughts on the spec now, where I did well, where I went poorly, how I healed all the dogs at once, and how I did close to 6 million HPS and double battle tank. In this first pull, I do pre-tip the scales to make sure I get out that fire breath, and my focus here is getting out my threads of fate. I hit stasis, tip the scales, spirit bloom, TA, and dream breath, and one of the predominant reasons why I front load this is to deal with the strider tonk leaps. In this pull, there's a lot of really passive damage kind of going on from the leaping birds, so you want to make sure that your party always has healing going at the same time. But secondly, I want to keep that Threads of Fate buff active. Threads of Fate is one of the capstone talents in the Chronowarden tree. For when you cast an empowered spell, you're going to grant your party member multi-strike for 10 seconds. This does act like a pseudo buff that kind of works like PI. It is an external. It ends up being about 2% of my group's damage in some of these crazy pulls. Overall in a key, it's about 1%, give or take, of my group's total DPS contribution. This is a lot considering this is healer damage, so albeit it's not as good as a raid buff, it is something nice to kind of have out. You'll see there that when my temporal burst is active from tip to scales, I'm spamming those empowered abilities. On this boss, there's really not too much different from when I released my plus 16 video a couple months ago. I am going to be using Echo, Bird Embrace, into Spirit Bloom on every single one of these ground bounds. If I don't have that, I will be filling with a Void, kind of like using Rewind or Emerald Communion. Other than that, Preservation Evoker healing right now is so potent, I really don't need to really press anything on this fight. A second tip that I'm going to show you is that every time you get fixated by that flipper, you can actually just double jump and it'll cancel the cast and you won't really go anywhere. If you back up a frame, you'll see that I got targeted by the flipper, I immediately hit double jump, and I was back into combat with my team. Most of this fight is basically me just hitting Chrono Flame on CD, going Echo, Burn Embrace, and then that big Spirit Bloom. You shouldn't really have too much of a problem on this encounter, however, if you do, you should probably revisit your approach in healing it. I think a lot of this fight can just be simply solved by hitting that Echo, Burn Embrace, and then Spirit Bloom. You'll see here that my team does drop a little low because I was waiting to include my DK in the ramp, but that's okay as I did have tip to scales. I would say you can commit anything you really need on this encounter as long as you don't commit tip to scales twice. If you do feel like you are falling behind on healing, don't be afraid to use that Emerald Communion, that Rewind, that tip to scales, etc. Another really great tip on this fight is using that Echo, Burn Embrace, and then Health Bot. Remember that too, if you are hitting Health Bot during that Lifebind window, it is going to be duplicated and copied to your team. This makes it so that your Health Bot is now an AoE healing ability as opposed to just a personal. Really useful if you haven't seen that in my other videos, but I really recommend trying it out. As we start killing off this boss, I'm starting to think about what I need for next pull. We are going to be playing the drills downstairs and we will be skipping one of the drills, but I want to make sure that I have stasis and tip the scales active for that pull. You'll see that even on plus 19, I still haven't committed Rewind or Emerald Communion yet, and very little do I time dilate unless I feel like my team's going to be in absolute danger. Echo, Verdant Embrace into Spirit Bloom, and my team is stopped. Anyway, this fight is a little bit kind of boring from a healer perspective, although, you know, there's a couple things you should be worried about. I would say that for the most part, this isn't too bad. Ever since the buffs, Prez has insane throughput for this kind of thing, and I'm going to show you throughout this key as much healing as I'm able to do on a lot of these pretty difficult encounters. I've actually timed this key twice now on 19, and I'm going to showcase to you kind of the areas in which I thought were really cool. Some things Prez can do that other healers can't, and kind of the decisions that I made when getting through the ski. I think since the buffs, I've had a pretty favorable outlook on Prez, though kind of like my video explaining the buffs altogether, it hasn't really changed my outlook. People still don't really want to play with Prez as long as Oracle Disc Priest does exist, Resto Shaman brings an insane raid buff, etc. Now, I'm going to fast forward ahead here because in this area we ended up actually dying, so I'm going to fast forward ahead to the 13-minute mark where we're about finished this boss and we're down into the drill. So going ahead here, we do skip the first drill. I do time dilate my tank immediately because he wants to make sure that he doesn't cheat on gather. And as well, now you're going to see that I'm going to start ramping my stasis for this first drill. We do have all the gunks in this pull, meaning that I'm going to have a massive healing absorb coming up. As I hit that stasis, I do tip the scale Spirit Bloom, put out my Dream Breath, and we let all those healing absorbs go. But you're going to see here that with the Pres buffs, with one simple stasis release, I get rid of all 5 healing debuffs instantly. This is insane, and I don't think I was able to do this before, but knowing that stasis tipped the scales and that power from Lifebind is able to just instantly get off every single shield is nuts. I do commune there a little early into a big Spirit Bloom to try to top off these shields, but I ended up committing my Emerald Commune a little bit too early. I don't want my tank to cheat here, and I'm trying to healing him up as quickly as I can. But now I want to make sure that I don't overcommit. These healing absorbs do go away on their own, and as long as they're not on my tank, I don't have to heal them up. However, if they do go on my tank, I need to make sure that my tank is topped and off those healing absorbs instantly. If you are tanking or have tanked before, you'll know that if you get a bunch of these healing absorbs on you during this key, you will be fried. They will kill you really quickly, and they will proc you to cheat. Make sure that when you're healing this pull, maybe you'll have less gunks than I do, or maybe you're fighting 2 drills, to make sure to include your tank in your Lifebind ramps. There are a lot of pulls where you don't necessarily need to, but this one's really important. This next pull, we're pulling 4 dogs together with this skunk, meaning that I have 4 dispels to deal with. You'll see that there are a couple different approaches I can take, but I don't yet have stasis back because we're too fast. I do immediately dispel my Druid as he's the squishiest one in my comp, and I am committing a large healing cooldown just to make sure that I can get through this. With 4 dogs, Preservation can easily heal this, and I'm also going to show you how to do 6. Using your buddy's stasis is going to help you a ton, as you can actually store multiple dispels within that window. However, here you're not going to see that right away, as I do call to dispel my Druid again, and I do hit that Spirit Bloom into Rewind. Rewind carries the entire dot duration, and I'm able to get through all 4 of those dogs very, very easily without even having a stasis dispelled. You'll see there that I did panic stasis at the end of the pull and put a Spirit Bloom in there with some pretty awful combinations, including a Reversion and a Verdant Embrace. With this in mind, we are now pulling Kujo. Kujo is coming in on the encounter, and as well here, I'm going to want to make sure that for every one of his Flame Chomps, my party is topped. If they're not top tier, there is a good chance that they will die because we don't have the fort buff available from Priest. This does deal almost 100% of my health, and on my Preservation Evoker, I need to hover Obsidian Scales, Rescue, or Zephyr every time. You'll see here that before the dot is expelled, I immediately press hover there, I go into my life binds, I Dream Breath, and I'm constantly in a position where I'm trying to adjust around my party. I'm not telling my party to go anywhere for me, I'm just basically making sure that I'm in melee so that I can Dream Breath my team. Again, I Verdant Embrace, I Spirit Bloom, and my party is stopped. Again, for every single one of those placing chomps, you want to make sure you press something. I'd say that 19's my break-even point personally in my gear, where I don't have enough versatility or stamina to survive them, so you're always going to see me press hover. As I go into hover there and I rescue, I make sure that my team is topped up for this next either charge or blazing stomp. Otherwise, Kujo's pretty easy. I don't think you should have too many problems with it. As you'll see here, I just kind of ramp my stasis whenever I feel like. But again, you want to make sure that as this boss comes to the end, you are making sure you're saving that stasis and that tip the scales for the dog pull. As we get around this corner, again, I always send out a temporal anomaly, get some reversions rolling, echo, 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 prepare my dispel, I have hover or obsidian scales for damage reduction, go into lifebind, and immediately top my party. I don't think there's like a certain art that you need for Kujo. I think like you could do a lot of different things and probably heal this perfectly fine. But making sure you're in a position where you're always trying to abuse that life bind is always going to be your prerogative. See there that again, I hover before the damage comes out, and I don't really get close to dying, but it's enough that you might as well just be doing it anyway on no matter what key level. I do Emerald Communion here as I want to get it on cooldown and make sure that I also get the 20% health from my Emerald Vitality buff. I do commit Tip the Scales to top my team, and now I'm just back to hitting the boss. Overall, I think the buffs are insane for a fight like this, where all I have to do is hit that Lifebind once and hit any one of my empowered abilities, and my team stopped. You'll see here that I often rescue too. I think rescue is a really underrated button and does provide a 35% shield on yourself and a party member, meaning that my druid doesn't need to bear form when I rescue, and as well it saves me from having to use obsidian scales, time dilation, or other. You'll see here that my mana is getting a little bit low, but it's not the end of the world. Remember, on fights like this, I can also always just abuse Disintegrate to be able to get back mana if I need to, because I won't need all the echoes. Energy Loop is an amazing talent, and I'm still running it after the buffs. Energy Loop provides so that when you hit Disintegrate on a target, you're going to restore mana equal to 7,200, I think it is, per tick. The opportunity cost is really, really low, and I really recommend trying to pick it up if you haven't already. This last Explosive Leaf comes out, my team gets dangerously low, but I'm not really trying to Dispel here until I can get my team topped. I think that's Kujo Explosion is just to show like what we were kind of dealing with, but I'm going to pause the video here and show you what you need to do to handle all 6 dogs on Preservation Evoker. I was told that this wouldn't be possible and that we'd need to adjust the routes, and I said hold my beer. When doing the spell on Preservation Evoker, you want a couple things. You want stasis, you want time dilation, you want to make sure you have obsidian scales, 2 charges preferable, but one at least, and you want to use Renewing Blaze. Having rewind here is also a failsafe to make sure that you can heal through the second set of dots. It is important that if you're going to do this pull, you also have your team members aware that they need to be using things like Mass Barrier, like AMC, and Darkness. Unfortunately, you can see here that our mage used Mass Barrier at the end of last fight, so now we no longer have it for the dogs, but this ends up being just okay. As I do get into this pull, I am stasis dispelling. That means is I am hitting stasis and storing 3 dispels within my stasis window. That means when the dog leaps jump on my boomkin, my DK, and my mage, they're all going to get instantly dispelled. However, we need to make sure that we first live that, as I'm telling my team to use AMC here, and I am immediately going into a Lifebind window. Once that Lifebind starts, I am hitting that Spirit Bloom, I hit that Stasis Dispel release, and my team is topped. I definitely panic rewound here, but that's okay, as next set I am going to have Darkness and I'm going to have Tip the Scales. As these jumps go out, I immediately Lifebind into Tip the Scale Spirit Plume, TA, Dream Breath, and I'm going to be passively healing through all these dots. As soon as my druid hit 2 stacks of dot, I did immediately time dilate him and then hit that Dispel button. As you can see, I was able to make sure that my team lived pretty easy with that Mass Dispel, with that Rewind, and with that Tip the Scales. If you can save Emerald Communion, this is also insanely valuable on this pack and is very useful. On this jump, I always like to hit my rescue onto either my druid or my DK to get them up here so that we can skip some of the RP. I'm now done 2 of 3 of the hard difficult healer checks in this dungeon, and I'm going to be showing you what you need to do to get through the rest of this key. There's still some trash in here that can pose a couple threats, and if you're not careful, you can definitely lose people on. But for the most part, from now on out, this is merely a DPS dungeon. Other than the double battle tank, I don't see too many challenges from a healer perspective, so what you should be doing is just helping kick, helping CC, and helping communicate with your team when they need defensive help. I do use that oppressing roar there to get my improved timing and duration on my Silent Sigil and my Nova from my tank, and he unfortunately got it off there right at the very end, but we didn't miss any kicks. During the Guard Tinkerer pack, all I'm really doing is hitting Living Flame, Life Spark, and Disintegrate. As you can see, we did let one kick go off there, and it did almost whack me 100-0, but I did manage to live okay. I could have prevented that, as I did have Tail and Wing Buffet available, but that's alright. As we get into the defense bots, I am going to have to start thinking about what kind of healing ramp I want here. In this pull, I can also stasis dispel the debuffs, which is massive because it is going to be helpful in dealing with the overlap from the defense bot 3. However, I also could end up using this healing ramp as just a regular healing ramp. As you'll see here, I do end up just hitting that tip to scales and getting through that entire healing ramp with just tip. I think stasis and tip on this pull can kind of be desynced a little bit because I think each of them are strong enough to probably get through the other. But if you want to combine tip to scales and stasis and do that lifebind ramp with a spirit bloom, a TA, and a dream breath, I think that's more than fun. You'll see here that I did call for my team to pop defensives on this one, and as well I'm going to be hitting that dream breath to get everybody topped. If you do find yourself in a pickle on this defense bot pack, make sure you're utilizing things like Stasis Dispel to get rid of some of the debuffs, and using things like Emerald Communion or Rewind if they're available. On this battle tank, this is going to be my first look at what it feels like to heal a battle tank on a 19. You'll see that here my healing is actually very periodic. I don't put all my healing out right away, but I'm just passively putting out those echoes, 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 burn embrace, and then I'm alternating things like that fire breath, like that spirit bloom, and then my stasis release when I don't have any buttons left. I think my biggest tip of advice to a lot of preservation evokers is don't just immediately release that stasis. I see so many preservation evokers ramp a stasis up and then just release it the next global, when really your stasis can last you a very long time. Your kind of goal is to release your stasis when your first dream breath expires. That way you're getting maximum uptime on dream breath and it never has to fall. You'll see here that even on this pack, I haven't used a single charge of Obsidian Scales or Renewed Blaze, as I don't think I do until the very end of the pull. I do hit that Burn Embrace, I hit that Spirit Bloom, and my team is stopped. There's no reason why, again, that you shouldn't use Emerald Communion or Rewind if you need to here. I think the thing is that on the next encounter, people are either going to get one shot and die, or, you know, they're going to get run over by something or hit by a beam. You don't really need any healing cooldowns to be able to deal with this encounter too much. We are going to be pulling trash into the boss, as it is going to act as Arcane Mage funnel, and we do have every cooldown and Bloodlust available. With this in mind, there is actually a little bit of a healer check from me, as I'm going to need to be making sure that I'm dispelling debuffs, I'm healing up my team from zaps, etc. I did pull a little bit of a blunder. As you could see, I get stunned twice in the Scotlet. I'm looking like a little bit of a buyer right now. This was a pretty tough point for me, as I was trying to rush through and have some stop points. I wanted to do a really cool blink, but I didn't end up pulling it off, and now I'm just wasting my team's time. This does waste about 30 seconds in my key, and now I'm playing it really safe because I don't want my team to wait any longer. As I get up through this corridor, I'm making sure that I hug the left wall from this detective bot, and I don't risk using that hover blink to get through here. Although I can blink through those things, the last thing I want to do is have one more reset when I'm already behind. On this pull, I am going to be oppressing Roaring immediately, hitting Bloodlust, hitting Tip the Scales, and immediately getting out my empowered spells. I do hit Stasis, Spirit Bloom, TA, and Dream Breath. And one of the things here that I talked about in the first pull is I really want to make sure that I'm getting out those Threads of Fate. Remember, Threads of Fate is a massive party DPS increase, and it can be, you know, up to 1 or 2% on certain encounters or bosses of your entire party's DPS. This can be entire seconds off your key if you think about it. As here you can see how much healing is actually going on with all these debuffs going on and the Blossom Blasts from these plants. In Bloodlust, when we're pulling into the boss, we don't actually end up killing the plant right away. The reason why we do this is we want to put all that damage in the boss while we're in Bloodlust, and I'm just going to heal through it. As long as my team is popping defensives and I'm able to get a little bit of healing off, it's very manageable to be able to do this, but you do need a little bit of help from your team in knowing that they need to press defensives on this boss. You can't be responsible for healing people up, getting hit by the plants, getting hit by the debuff, and, you know, maybe even getting hit by other things on the ground if they're not using their own defensive. So this is definitely a team effort as much as it is on me and my DPS. What we really need to do is make sure we're not getting hit by those blades. I'm hitting Living Flames into the boss where I can, using Fire Breath and cooldown, and then healing my team up from the plants. Using Time Dilate here on somebody that's fixated by the plant is very, very, very good. You can pretty much use it on every other plant, so whenever you feel like you're scared, or maybe the plant's attacking you, just go ahead and like you see there on Yuumi main, I did just slam that Time Dilate. I am very careful about my hover uses on this encounter, as I want to make sure that I'm casting as much as possible, but I'm also respecting the heck out of the beams, the lines, the puddles, and as well the shredders. There is a lot going on in this fight, and it's very easy to get overloaded cognitively, so take your time, and if you need to stop DPSing and just run around, absolutely go ahead and do that. Prez is a hard casting spec, and although you have Azure Strike, which is instant, which you're going to see here I do sometimes, just like I did right there a couple times, 1, 2 Azure Strikes, I would recommend just taking your time and moving away from the blades, and not risking it just to get off the Living Flame. Your healer damage is not impactful enough to speed up this key on this encounter. You getting out 1 additional Living Flame will not make or break your key in 99% of cases, so making sure that you just avoid that Shredder and live is going to be more valuable than you getting out that 1 Living Flame. You'll see here that I'm absolutely fighting demons with these 5 Shredder Blades, these lines, and these puddles all beating me up in the corner. The Druid and I are locked in this corner here, being careful about these puddles, and as well, I'm just trying my best to be able to survive. You're going to see one very important thing here is you can see I did not recommit Tip to Scales. I did not commit Stasis, I did not commit Rewinds, and I did not commit Emerald Communion, as I'm going to need all of them to deal with the double battle tank on this encounter. I don't know where my Druid is. My Druid is hiding here, and I ended up having to commit Obsidian Scales and Renewing Blaze to this plant because we are just hitting the boss. Now I'm going to pause here. This actually really hurt me because not having Renewing Blaze here is a massive HPS drop on this encounter, as I'm going to be using it with Lifebind. Remember, Renewing Blaze is effective healing towards your Lifebind window, and it's going to set me back here a little bit. But it doesn't matter, even without using any sort of mind control tech, I am going to be able to heal this double battle tank very easily. Watch my setup carefully here as we go into the double battle tank. I'm going to be putting TA out for reversions, I'm going to be Zephyring early, and I'm going to be making sure I get that Stasis, Tip the Scales, and Dream Breath active. I'm only going to be using Emerald's Communion and Rewind as gap fillers when I don't have empowered abilities. Remember, we do not have my Renewing Blaze here in the opener, which sucks as it usually carries the entire healing. I Lifebind, I Stasis, I Tip the Scales, Spirit Bloom, and as well I go into that Dream Breath. I TA, I get out again, Echo, 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 Lifebind, release that Stasis early, and now I'm going into a big Fire Breath. I release the Fire Breath, I Echo, 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 go into my next Lifebind, and I'm hitting a massive Spirit Bloom here to cover the next damage tick. I am going to be starting to use the healing cooldown here as I commit Rewind into Echo, 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 and again, Lifebind. I call for AMZ, and now I just have to make it to the next Verdant Embrace, which is coming up in 3 seconds. This is why haste is so incredibly good on Prez, and you're going to see here that I get so many Lifebind windows all the way up until I'm able to go into Emerald Communion. I am a little weak here for 1 tick, as I did release my Stasis a little early. I call for Darkness, I go into Lifebind, and now I'm back to being able to heal this forever. I did spike close to 6 million HPS the last time I tried it, and I think you would have probably seen that if I was a little smarter about not having lost my Renewing Blaze. But I did end that encounter alone at 5 million HPS, which is crazy. Nobody died, and I think I could have kept healing that for a bit if I was a little bit smarter. The second time I healed the battle tanks, we went with no CDs, and I think I did close to 6.2 million HPS. I was a little bit smarter with my Stasis release when I did have Renewing Blaze, but for all intents and purposes, it did work out, and we're on to the last trash pulls of the dungeon. On this trash, a really quick trick that I don't see a lot of people actually know is you can actually just sit in these shield generators and dodge the squirrels completely. I do like to jump up here for a couple reasons, mostly to do with my frontals, but if you ever get targeted by a squirrel and you're in the shield generator, you can absolutely just sit in the shield generator and eat the squirrel. As you're going to see here, you can see I'm in the shield generator, the squirrel explodes, and we're more than fine. The scary part of this trash pack is when we have no shield generators. I do commit a life bind here into a Spirit Bloom, which is a little bit early, and a Blender on my part, so I do hit that Tip the Scales and that Dream Breath. Remember, Zephyr is also exceptionally good on these trash pulls, as a lot of the trash in this dungeon is AoE and area of effect. What that means is Zephyr is an amazing 20% DR on, I think, almost every boss in here it works, and as well, it does work on all this trash. See here that I did get a little bit scared, but I did get that life bind out on that very last defense spot ramp of the encounter. As we get up here, we do have 7 minutes left in the key and more than enough time to beat this pretty difficult dungeon. We are going to be having our Demon Hunter Misery skip. He's going to be pulling these defenders, and I'm going to be rescuing up my DK so that none of us get in combat. As soon as my team's up here, we're immediately going to be going into the boss, and I'm going to be showing you the tips and tricks that you need to be able to handle King Mechagon on Preservation Evoker. Most of this fight is blasting just that living flame over and over again, but you need to make sure that you respect these Gigazaps. You're going to see for every Gigazap, I press 2 things. I press hover, plus 1 button. Remember, hover is your 20% damage reduction, and anytime you feel very safe, I would really recommend not using Obsidian Scales, but using just hover instead. Hover and Obsidian Scales, or if you have an Echo on yourself into a Golden Hour, is going to be able to top and cover you through an entire Mega Zap. And what you really want to save Obsidian Scales for is those kind of scary times. Although you have 2 charges, it is possible to go through a really bad streak in the second phase, where you're getting Mega Zapped over and over and over again. On 19, this will kill me if I don't have any defensive button, and I know it's going to kill my Boomkin if he's not in bear form. That does mean that I do and might have to start thinking about if I need to use Time Dilate on one of my team members. If I do use Time Dilate on one of my team members, it does mean that I can't use it on myself. Even when my mage gets zapped there, I want to make sure that every single time one of my party members gets that zap, they have an echo on them. If they have an echo on them, it's very easy for me to kind of revamp my decision making. If I need to use something like Spirit Bloom on them or just an echo reversion, it is going to be more than enough to top them. On this Mega Zap there, I did commit a charge of Obsidian Scales, and part of the reason why is because I'm going to be sitting on 2 soon, so I just want to use one to get it on cooldown. Going to the next phase, I will have a charge of Obsidian Scales, I will have Renewing Blaze, and I will have 2 charges of Hover, Rescue, and Time Dilate. There's no particular order or reason about how you should be planning your defensive cooldowns and your offensive cooldowns in this encounter. I think Communion and Rewind are both really good used in the Magnet phase, while Stasis is really well used in the Mega Zap phase. King Mechagon has these 2 phases in the last phase, and you kind of have to figure out whatever works best for you and how you want to heal it. I'd say that again, there's no rhyme or reason behind some of my actions, but I do want to make sure I have coverage for every single healing event. I find Stasis is really, really nice again for the Mega Zap event because I can pair it with Tip the Scales and Spirit Bloom to get my team fully topped during those Mega Zaps. What's really nice is if I use Stasis on this first set of Mega Zaps, I can release it for the first Magnet, and then have things like Emerald Communion or Rewinds to be able to cover me. Remember, in my talent build that you can take from Raider.io, I do have it so that my Emerald Communion does give me 20% effective health after I use it for 15 seconds. You'll see here that I do go into that Stasis, I do go into that Spirit Bloom cast, and now I have my Stasis fully ramped with Spirit Bloom, TA, and Dream Breath. The nice thing is, on this encounter, range isn't really that big of a deal if you are the one furthest back. I didn't really tell my team to do anything particular, but I do release the Stasis here in this Magnet phase, and as well just commit a hard Spirit Bloom, and my team is more than topped. I would say my number 1 trick to you on King Mechagon is being either the furthest person in the room, or somewhere in the middle of the room that you can kind of reach everybody on your team. I don't think you need to play melee and ask people to play melee, and I think it's like very cringe if you do that. I think you have the tools and the kit to be able to just heal everybody up pretty naturally just by jumping around back and forth in the back. If you are playing the back of the room, you are going to have the best time dealing with your Dream Breath and as well having a field of view on your team. Well, look at right now as I pause the video how perfectly I can see everybody. I know where my Druid is, I know where my Mage is, I know where my Death Knight is, and if I really need to, I have Spatial Paradox available that is going to help carry me in a time where things go bad. For this next set of Mega Zaps, I'm considering what my ramp needs to be, and immediately I go and start ramping that Spirit Bloom into my Druid. We are going to be dealing with a magnet face here, so I'm starting to think about if I need to press a certain button to be able to get through this. I time dilate myself, I hover, and I go into Emerald Communion with that life bind, and you can see that my team is just very, very cozy. I'm not really scared on anything on this encounter anymore. The one thing I am scared of though is my team getting one shot. You can see here that I get dangerously low, and that is the exact example that I want to show. Sometimes you end up in circumstances where you really want that Obsidian Scales and that Blaze, and Hover's not going to be enough. If I didn't have both those buttons there, there's a good chance I just die and we could lose the key. I do heal myself up with that Spirit Bloom for that Primacy buff, as I want the additional haste value from keeping my Spirit Bloom out. I'm keeping reversions out on my team for that Grey Spirit effect, and I'm always ramping and prepping with Echo. I think it's kind of crazy watching this encounter how much I actually prep with Stasis and Tip the Scales here. I have tons of life binds out at all time, and for every single damage pattern on this encounter, it's just that Echo, 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 Verdant Embrace, Spirit Bloom, and your team is topped. We go into the magnet phase, I release my stasis, and if I really need to here, remember too, I do have rewind. Again, I really like the strategy of just staying max range and staying as far away of my team as possible for that field of view. Makes it very, very easy for me to be able to handle some of the healing encounters. As the boss goes down, I was able to get through this entire encounter with only using Tip the Scales once in the second phase and not even having to use rewind. Basically, this fight is all to do with clever positioning, and I think you can get through it just okay with a couple reps and making sure you don't panic. Remember, use that hover DR more, use time dilate more, and come up with a game plan for each one of these damage events. Use stasis a lot and keep up those echoes on your team. Echoes are so flexible as Prez, and if you just want to keep them up to go into life bind, I'd say that's like your #1 kind of healing point. But anyway, hope this video helped you get through the +19 workshop in Operation Mechagon. I've had a ton of fun playing Prez since the buffs, and hopefully I will be putting out some more content soon. If you like this kind of content or want to see more, feel free to drop something in the comments or come drop by my Discord where I have all my UI and my weak ores available for free. I do really appreciate the support as I continue to grow this channel, as it takes a lot of work to put into and get ready for these video reviews. Again, good luck with your keys, good luck with your journey on obtaining title on Preservation or any other spec, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.